Yo guys, welcome back to another video. Today we'll be working on my daily, the 6N2 Polo. This is a 2001 model and it needs a new clutch. So we're gonna get that done today in this video and let's get into it, to be honest. Let's start pulling this thing apart. Alrighty, so this is my 1.4 litre Polo engine and we're going to be pulling pretty much all the stuff on this side of the engine out so we can have access to everything that's down there. We're going to start pulling the battery out first. Alrighty, so once the battery is out, we're going to remove this battery tray and we're going to have a look down there and see if there's any cables and a couple other things, so then we can free up the gearbox. So we've just loosened the clutch cable, and what you can do after you've loosened that, just pull on this part up and you can pull it to the side and pull it off like so, and then just up here we're gonna pull up in here and then slide it out. And the next thing, I'll probably remove this harness off and this earth cable that's here and whatnot. Just need to disconnect everything off the harness and everything off the transmission, so when we pull it out, nothing's going to get caught. We've just disconnected the speed sensor down here. I'm just disconnecting this bolt here now that has an earth strap on it. Just pull that bolt off. Alrighty, so just pull this one off. I might start taking this wheel off and having a look down underneath there. Next order of business, we're probably going to take these axle bolts off next. Best way to do that is to get maybe an Allen key and put it through the rotor, so then this doesn't move whilst you're trying to take those bolts off, because you do not want to strip those out at all. Alrighty, so that's one bolt out. We just need to get the other few out now. So we'll spin the rotor around so then we can grab them from the top. We just need to do that another 5 more times. So we've detached the first axle. We're going to move this out of the way. We need to remove this sort of dog bone mount. We might have to detach the shifter mechanism as well, but we're going to remove that dog bone mount first and then we'll have a look from there. Alrighty, so the dog bone is now removed. Good thing to do when you're pulling things apart is to put the bolts back, at least whatever bolts you can, so then you don't have to go looking for them later or organize them. But now we've taken the dog bone off, I'm going to try to take the other axle off now. So got to take this wheel off. So we've taken the wheel off now and it's pretty much just the same as the other side, but we're going to have to reach a little bit further this time. We have the axle bolts there. Just need to remove that just like the other side. Alrighty, so that drive shaft is now unbolted. There's a couple of things I need to do before I can pull that gearbox off. So I'll pick up from tomorrow and I'll see you guys then. Alright, so it's another day. We are going to do some more work to this Polo. We need to remove the shifter cables and the starter motor and then the rest of the bell housing bolts. And then I think we're ready to drop the transmission out and pull it out. So I want to start on those shifter cables first. I believe there's just a bolt on one of them and then a clip to pull out, and we're going to push those to the side. Alrighty, so I don't know what you can really see right here. It's hard to get a good angle, but right here are the cables. One and the second one up here is disconnected, so that should be good. I've also unbolted this mount here that bolts off, so I just had to push that away, and then we'll have to take that bolt right there where my finger is to disconnect from the bell housing. But pretty much everything besides the starter motor that's up there is disconnected now, so I think we have bolts from the other side to disconnect that. So once the starter motor is out, I think we're pretty much set to go and start taking these bell housing bolts off. Alrighty, starter motor is now out. We're gonna probably clean that up later on, but now start unbolting the bell housing bolts. There's one here and then there's a further one back there, and then we can drop these bolts down from here and there as well, and then the transmission should just drop down. I'll jack up the engine and then we can slide that transmission off. Alright, so we have now disconnected the bell housing from the engine. We only needed to take off 4 more bolts. The other 2 were for the starter. I've just put this small drawing on a piece of cardboard so then I can know where these bolts need to go later on. But you can have a look down here. You can start to see the flywheel just along there. It's starting to come apart. I don't think there's any more bolts. There's no more plugs. Everything's disconnected. So we just need to remove the transmission bolts, jack up the engine, and then slide the transmission out. And then I think we should be good to replace the clutch. Alrighty, so we've now pulled the gearbox out of the Polo, and I'm going to pull the clutch pressure plate off and then pull the old clutch off, and then we can have a look at that and compare it to the new clutch that I just bought. Alright, so this is the old clutch kit, and this is the new clutch kit I ordered, and I also have the throwout bearing taken out as well. Now, on further inspection, I've realized that the clutch disc isn't actually super worn compared to the new one. And that looks all good and well, and you know, this surface doesn't look too burnt, and same with the flywheel. And for a 24-year-old clutch, this is pretty healthy. So I was actually surprised on how good it looks. But on this pressure plate, the teeth is quite sunken in, and the metal's sort of fatigued quite a bit. Compared to the brand new one, you can kind of see that this is quite enraised, pointing more upwards compared to this flattened out one. The throwout bearing also is quite noisy, and that would have been against that. Yeah, I think that was the issue, is probably the metal on the pressure plate has actually fatigued, and the teeth aren't pushing and actually separating the clutch enough anymore. So that clutch should help out, and I'm hoping that when we get this gearbox back in and we take it for a test drive, fingers crossed this car's good to go again. So I've just cleaned out the bell housing. This is much cleaner than it was before, and I have the new throwout bearing, which I believe should just clip it into place with these clips. They just kind of push onto these little hooks. Before I do that, I want to put some multi-purpose grease onto it, so just a little bit, and then just sort of put it onto the little hooks. We don't need much at all, really, just enough. It's just good practice to have on moving parts some grease. So the new throwout bearing is installed. The new clutch and pressure plate is now installed as well and aligned. I think we're ready to chuck this gearbox back in. Alrighty, so we have the gearbox now in. Before I go and bolt everything back up and put the clutch cable, the starter motor, and the rest of the other bolts on, the axles, a few little things I still need to do, but the gearbox is finally in. Was an absolute hassle and a half. Before I get to doing that, I'm going to replace a little plug that was on the coolant flange. When I drove it to the shed, it started leaking from this plug that's on the coolant thermostat flange. So we're going to just quickly replace that. Got some O-rings onto these. We're going to do the coolant temp sensor, because same with the S3, the coolant temp sensor is dead. So we're going to be able to read the coolant temperature from now with the new sensor in. So we've replaced the coolant temp sensor now. The clip is in there, so that shouldn't come back out. I'm going to use this little pry bar to sort of pry out this little plug. Quickly try to get the new one in. Alrighty, and now the plug is replaced. So this is the old plug, now that it's been replaced. I can't really see where it was leaking from, but it definitely, these plastic things all over VW's coolant systems always manage to crack, including all their little coolant flanges and thermostat housings. They're all made of plastic, so they eventually just crack and then leak coolant. So it must have been only a small crack on this one because it was leaking very slowly, but still not good regardless. I might actually have to go get some coolant because I leaked a lot more than I was anticipating, but that's okay. I'm gonna try to get the rest of the gearbox stuff back together, and then we'll top it up with coolant. Alrighty, so next thing, we need to put this starter motor back in. This might be the hardest thing that we need to do, reinstall, other than the gearbox itself. But yeah, just need to bolt it in. It's just a bit of a tight, cramped area. Tightening up the 3 bolts for starter motor in right now. Much easier than I thought it was going to be to get back in. I'm very happy with that, because that seems to be the only thing that I thought was going to be quite difficult. So I think I might do the axles next, and I'll have to bolt them back to the control arms first and then bolt it to the diff. Alrighty, so we've now installed the starter motor. The cables are now connected and the extra torque mount. I just need to reconnect the control arms to the ball joints, because I had to remove those so I could actually have a bit more clearance when reinstalling the gearbox. There just wasn't a lot of clearance, so I had to make some by removing those. So we're just bolting them up now. There's only just 3 bolts that are on the control arm with a little alignment plate. And before we tighten the rest of the bolts up, I've just added some load by jacking the control arm up, and then we'll snap those tight, and then we got to do on the other side. Reinstall the drive shafts and the dog bone there as well. And then, yeah, and then once we tighten those few things back together, I think we're good for a test drive. Alrighty, so we've gotten the Polo back together. Everything is bolted on and ready to go. We're gonna jack the car down, and then we're gonna fill it up with some coolant and then start her up and see how she goes. Alrighty, so I have the jumper cables on the Polo now, ready to start this thing up in the first time, probably for a couple months now. Oh. Running nice and smooth now. We're gonna just bleed the coolant, and I'll take you guys for a test drive. Alrighty, so we're in the Polo for a test drive now. I'm very happy with the outcome of replacing the clutch. It's very good to get into gears now.